Pain isn't optional. It will come for us. Misery, however, is optional. Let's talk about what Paul gained. We talked about what he lost. Let's talk about what Paul gained. He gained a knowledge of Christ. Now, this doesn't mean a mere cognitive acquiescence about Christ's identity. You can know a lot of facts about Jesus and still miss heaven altogether. Rather, a life-changing encounter with Christ where Jesus reveals his true nature and changes yours. This is what a knowledge of Christ means. Christianity is Christ. It's not merely a moral stand. It's not a series of rules and lists. It is, in fact, an encounter with a living Christ, raised from the grave, experiencing power and sharing it with each of us. Knowing facts about Christ isn't the same as sharing about Christ with his life. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, I've been crucified with Christ, the Apostle Paul says, but not me anymore. The life that I live in the flesh is the life of faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Jesus' death and his resurrection gives me life, even if I too must die. That brings us to the next thing. If my righteousness is the only one I've got, I'm in trouble. No, Paul came to understand the righteousness of Christ. He had been a Pharisee, but he realized that was a cup with a hole in the bottom. When he met Christ, he was granted a new type of righteousness, as each of us are. It is Christ's righteousness. The technical theological term is imputation. It means to put on or put into someone else's account. Paul realized that he was bankrupt spiritually. Christ came and credited his account to Paul. Christ longs to do the same for you. Paul's sins, and all of ours as well, were paid for by Christ on the cross. And now that he has been raised back to life, our life is intertwined with his. Here's another thing that Paul gained, a kinship with Christ. It's one thing for Christ to grant us righteousness. It's something else to get to go home with him. Something in that draws us home. Go to Romans chapter 8, and you'll find one of the most humbling passages in the New Testament. Verses 8, 15, and 16 says that we are joint heirs with Christ, meaning whatever Jesus has coming to him as inheritance comes to us as well. If that doesn't blow your fuses, then I don't know what will. It means that Jesus gave you something that only he could. And that brings us to the next thing. Not only do we have a knowledge about Christ, the righteousness of Christ, a kinship with Christ, but we also get to experience the power of the resurrection. When the curtain fell on Paul's past, it opened on a far more powerful future. He finally got plugged in to the right power source. And when it changed, it altered everything about his future. There's one more piece that Paul gained. He references it there in verse 10. He gained the opportunity to be a partner in suffering. I make a joke when someone tells me that they have cancer, that it's a club no one wants to join. We've known brothers and sisters around the world who have suffered for their faith. Everyone wants to share in Christ's glory. Not as many want to share in his sufferings. To be like Christ, though, means we're invited to share exactly that. If we're going to share in his glory, then suffering is a natural part of our condition. It's been said by some that you should never suffer as a Christian. I bet Jesus would be surprised by that. So would the Apostle Paul. Don't be deceived. Being a Christian does not mean that all suffering goes away. Rather, it changes the prism through which we view that suffering. We were never meant to stay on this earth forever anyway. But suffering is something that we all flee. It's in our DNA. We want to get away from hurt. But consider this with me, friends. For gold to be pure, it must be refined. For diamonds to be mounted, they must be cut. Such a process, if they had nerve endings, would most certainly be painful. Let's be clear, pain isn't optional. It will come for us. Misery, however, is optional. To recognize pain as a byproduct of growth toward maturity in Christ, invites a new perspective to prism that suffering through, a pathway toward Christ-like maturity. Friends, I want to invite you to take this home with you. About 70 years ago, a group of missionaries from the Chicago area went down to South America, led by Jim Elliot. They found themselves face to face with some who had never heard the name of Christ. I want to send you home with this. It's a quote from Jim before I tell you the rest of his story for those of you who don't know it. He is no fool to give what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. Jot that down, take that home and write that somewhere. Jim and his friends reached out to this tribe, and over a series of days, they thought they were making some inroads. When Jim and his companions did not return as planned, the sending group knew something was wrong. They sent another group back and found Jim and his companions lying dead in the river. Here's the end of the story, right? Wrong. His wife, Elizabeth, decided that God was still calling that family to reach them. So she went. She went and shared the gospel in a way that God had ordained in just the right way, even winning those who murdered her husband to Christ. This, beloved friends, is what it looks like to suffer for Christ and to experience the power of his resurrection at the same time.